By the 1760s, the company held military command over Bengal. With the battlefields cleared, the wealth of a subcontinent lay ostensibly within their reach. But the logistics of conquest differ from the logistics of extraction. Controlling a territory is not the same as understanding how to efficiently tax its population. This created a paradox for the early company state. While they faced no armed resistance in the ceded lands, their financial records showed a system spinning toward collapse. We can trace this failure through the primary evidence used by Parliament to investigate the crisis, the Fifth Report of 1812. This document is a retrospective audit. It represents a decades-long effort to understand how the company's initial economic experiments nearly destroyed the colonial project. The Fifth Report provides a forensic map of the British Empire's formation, told through the data of its most significant fiscal crises. To observe the mechanics of this crisis, we look to the district of Burdwan, the testing ground for the company's most aggressive revenue policies. This table by Administrator Harry Verelst tracks the net revenues collected from the district between 1760 and 1770. The early data shows extreme volatility. Receipts jumped from 600,000 rupees to over 38 million in a single year, followed by cycles of erratic returns. This instability stemmed from a new policy. The company decided to auction the right to collect land taxes to the highest bidder. Theoretically, the auction would use market competition to find the maximum value of the land. Instead, it eroded the agricultural base of the province. These ledgers demonstrate how speculation and a lack of local data pushed the company toward a financial breaking point. In 1760, the company lacked the personnel to manage tax collection themselves. They initially relied on Raja Tilak Chand, the hereditary ruler of Burdwan. As a zemindar, Tilak Chand functioned as a local aristocrat. He managed the agrarian population, collected rents, and provided a fixed tribute to the central authority. The first major agreement between the company and the Raja set a target of over 2.8 million rupees. The ledger itemizes the specific demands placed on the Raja, including the traditional Mughal categories of Khalsa, Jaghir, and Chauth. Company officials understood this figure was lower than the land's actual yield. They accepted the reduction to ensure political stability while fighting the Maratha invasions. Once the military threat passed, shareholders in London demanded higher returns. This forced local officials to find a way to circumvent the zemindar's control over land valuation. In 1762, the company introduced the outcry, a system of public auctions meant to replace the hereditary zemindars. The economic theory was that open competition among bidders would finally reveal the juma, or the maximum potential revenue of the district. The province was divided into geographic blocks. These were leased to revenue farmers, whose high bids promised the company a massive increase in income. However, these leases were frequently issued for only a single year. These short-term contracts removed any incentive for the leaseholders to maintain the land. Their only goal was to extract as much wealth as possible before their time ran out. By treating agricultural communities as liquid assets, the company created a speculative bubble that ignored the realities of long-term farming. This strategy hit a fundamental roadblock. The company held legal jurisdiction but lacked any data on actual crop yields or soil quality. This information gap made them dependent on a class of native accountants and record keepers known as mutasettis. Harry Verelst recorded that the mutasettis used this expertise to deceive the British on points of the greatest consequence, keeping the company ignorant of the land's true worth. They used their positions to steer the most productive lands toward their own proxies at artificially low valuations, leaving only the overvalued, poor-quality lands for the public auction. This created an information filter. The mutasettis siphoned off the prime assets for themselves, while the company only saw the failing high-risk assets that were pushed into the public market. In this environment, the native accountants who managed the ledgers dictated the economic reality of the province, regardless of British military power. The remaining land was sold at the outcry to speculators the records described as men of desperate fortunes. To pay off their exorbitant bids, these speculators squeezed the ryots, or peasant farmers, for every possible rupee. The peasant farmers eventually abandoned their fields to escape the crushing debt, leaving vast areas of fertile land uncultivated. The Fifth Report tracks the ruin of this ecosystem, detailing massive uncollected balances from the 3-year outcry period. Unpaid debts reached 892,000 rupees the first year, followed by hundreds of thousands more, leaving the system in total deficiency. The auction system destroyed the revenue stream it was meant to maximize by dismantling the agricultural base of the district. As the defaults mounted, investigations revealed that the company's own servants were profiting from the Mudasari schemes. When challenged for underpaying for prime land, these servants argued that at a public auction, if supposed paste jewels proved to be real diamonds, the profit belonged to the buyer, not the seller. This defense shifted the blame back onto the company for failing to understand the value of its own assets before putting them up for sale. The realization that they were running a blind liquidation sale of their territory forced a pivot in strategy. The failure of the outcry proved that short-term privatization was incompatible with building a sustainable colonial state. Harry Verelst was eventually sent to Burdwan with orders to stabilize the region and stop the financial losses. He ended the auction system and replaced it with long-term leases that incentivized farmers to improve their land rather than abandon it. These reforms required a new level of oversight, leading to the creation of the Sadar Kacheri. This institution became the primary court for resolving disputes between landlords and tenants, a move intended to prevent further mass desertions. The company also expanded its reach into criminal and charitable matters, forming specialized courts like the Fauzdari and the Bazi Zemin Dastur. The evidence within the fifth report shows how the company was forced to evolve from a trading entity into a governing one. The British colonial bureaucracy was not a premeditated plan for world governance. It was the structural wreckage left behind after the company's initial speculative greed nearly destroyed the economy of Bengal.